I'm Tim Bradner. Welcome to Capitol Views. We're here with Dan Robinson, Chief of Research, the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. Dan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tim. Good to be here.
The department just published in January the long-term job forecast, which is also a report, major report on the state economy. The state of the economy is jobs. Maybe can you tell us about that, Dan?
You bet. We do it short term. It's a 2014 forecast. We do long term every 2 years. So for this forecast, we looked out at 2014. We do it for statewide and then also for Southeast and for Anchorage and for Fairbanks. And a big part of that is kind of assessing where we are through 2013 and really determining what kind of a year 2013 was. And in that process, we saw that growth had slowed in 2013. And based on that and some other things, our forecast for 2014 is for growth, but quite mild growth, 0.5%, about 1,500 jobs.
What's involved here? Why would there be a slowdown?
Yeah, the main reason, if I had to choose one answer, it's federal government. I mean, and not, federal government's interesting because for a while, the amount of money we have been receiving has been trending downward. And we had a long turn at the trough, so to speak. We got a lot more money per capita than most other states for a while. And we still do get more per capita. But for a while, again, the story was more the amount of money coming to Alaska. But more recently, it's actually more the job count. I can't remember what 2013 was. 2014, we're forecasting a decline of 600 jobs. Federal jobs tend to be high paying, and you lose 600 jobs, there's a carryover effect, not a huge one. But that's the kind of one-word answer for why slower growth in 2013 and 14.
Do you have any feel for what parts of the state this would be affecting more?
Yeah, it's interesting because Southeast has been seeing declining federal government employment for a little bit longer, mostly tied to the Forest Service. For the rest of the state, it's spread across most of the agencies. So it's kind of the belt tightening that the federal government has been doing. Things like the government shutdown, and there's just been I think pressure on any kind of growth from the federal government, and they haven't had layoffs that we know of. It's more just declines by attrition, and the federal government workforce is a little bit older in Alaska, so it's not very hard to cut the job numbers by letting people retire and then not replacing them, and that's what we think is happening across most agencies.
What other sectors, Dan? What's growing to offset
Yeah,
that?
it's almost everything else, at least a little bit. So
that's
yeah,
encouraging.
it is, and that's, you talk about a bright side to a forecast for not a lot of job growth. I think a lot of people would accept declines in federal government job growth in exchange for some private sector growth. And I shouldn't say that because it's not as if we do exchange one for the other. But the bright side is that private sector, and on the other, local government is also not expected to grow much, and state government is expected to be flat. So on the government side, no real job growth, but tourism looks fairly good. Oil and gas is we're at 2013, 14,000 jobs. We're forecasting another 500 growth in 2014.
That's almost a record, isn't it?
14 is a record, all-time high. It's been trending up for a while. Very complicated, industry, as you know, better than most. But that's one of several. Mining has been strong for a few years. Commodity prices are back down a little bit, so that's not expected to be as strong as it has been. Fishing, tourism. Nothing really skyrocketing, but all of it steadily contributing to job growth.
Is there any, Dan, do you have a sense of, you mentioned federal jobs tend to be better paying, but across the private sector jobs, there would be a lot of medium wage, even low wage jobs mixed in there. Do you have a feel for what the balance would be, like what percentage would be higher wage and just across the board?
Well, we usually look at it by industry, and oil and gas jobs are very high wage. Mining jobs are very high wage. Tourism jobs, and we call it annualized. So if a job is only 4 months of the year, that counts as 1/3 of a job. So when we talk jobs, we don't do anything with full-time, part-time, but we do try to pull out the seasonality. But even after doing that, tourism jobs tend to be lower wage. Retail jobs, all the kind of support sector jobs tend to be lower wage. And there are a lot of those kinds of jobs, but they tend to depend on what happens in the higher wage jobs. So that's where we talk about drivers sometimes. What happens with oil, mining, tourism, fishing, that has a lot to do with what happens with all the lower paid kind of support sector jobs.
The restaurants, the hotels.
Yes, yeah.
Truck drivers.
Yeah, even, I mean, healthcare is interesting because you don't come to a place and set up a hospital. You have other things that bring people, and then you need hospitals and restaurants and government and all those other things.
Do you have a sense of, is our healthcare employment has been growing rapidly? Any sense of it slowing down?
Slightly, but you know, it's the old thing about the stories of my death have been much overrated or whatever. For years we've been waiting for it to slow, and it has, but it has before. So we're a little skeptical that it's really slowed. It has to slow sometime, but we have the baby boomers inching into retirement age, and that means higher need for health care. So what we expect long term is for healthcare to continue to grow at least a little faster than average for the other industries.
On balance, we're doing okay, as well as can be expected.
Yes, nothing, no storm clouds.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan. Thanks for joining us. Dan Robinson, Department of Labor, Chief of Research. I am Tim Bradner with Capital Views, and thank you.